All right, a story that we thought was over. The super mayor may be going to jail, but not for what we thought she would be going to jail for. Let me explain. So Tiffany Henyard was the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and she was a little corrupt. Here is a quick segment from Fox News.
An Illinois mayor is getting national attention for the way that she's spending taxpayer dollars. Now, critics say you can't turn your head in the Chicago suburb of Dalton without seeing the name of Mayor Tiffany Henyard. She's also the supervisor of a neighboring township and refers to herself as Super Mayor. It's her TikTok handle, too. But she's now accused of spending tens of thousands of taxpayer funds on self-promoting billboards, as well as putting her name on government buildings, government vehicles, even government rugs. Not to mention the Tiffany Henyard calendar, which includes the super mayor's birthday.
We begin with breaking news. A fist fight breaks out at Tiffany Henyard's Thornton Township meeting tonight, and witnesses say Henyard herself jumped onto the pile.
It was one thing when the guys were fighting, but when she jumped in it, I was just taken aback. I was floored.
She jumped in, she hit her head on the table. So, I don't know, she may be injured.
Now, we could talk about everything for her telling the townspeople that they better have her money, to her spending lavishly, to her $40,000 spent on the town's credit cards on one day for Amazon purchases. I'm talking about we got it all, people. Now, for those of you who haven't been up on the most recent developments, she lost her re-election for mayor. She lost her re-election for township supervisor, so she is now unemployed.
Breaking news as we come on the air tonight. It appears Tiffany Henyard is out. Thanks for joining us. I'm Scott Schneider.
I'm Dawn Hasbrook. Our Dane Placco has been the leader in breaking news on all of the Dalton drama. Dane, this sounds like a shocker.
Yeah, Tiffany Henyard didn't just lose tonight. You might call this a political annihilation. Her opponent, trustee Jason House, getting a 7-1 margin over her tonight. House with 87.9% of the 4,400 votes cast here today. Henyard getting just 12% of the vote. Those numbers came in fast this evening, sparking a huge celebration here at House's campaign headquarters.
Now, this brings us to recent developments. See, Henyard, even after being kicked out of office, still had to comply with some subpoenas that had been put down by some courts. See, during her tenure as mayor and as township supervisor, she just stopped honoring Freedom of Information requests. Those are lawful requests by citizens to see how their government is spending their money. Now, in this case, Henyard used the credit cards to do a lot of her spending, and credit card statements were one of the things that the Freedom of Information request allows citizens to look at. So if a government official spends $100,000 on a credit card, the statement that shows that is available under a Freedom of Information request. At the beginning of her tenure, the Freedom of Information requests for credit card statements were being honored by the village. And that allowed the news media to tell everyone, like, hey, this person is spending like crazy.
The most recent cost causing concern, Henyard's Taste of Thornton Township last month. WGN Investigates obtained records that show singer Kiki Wyatt was paid $30,000 to sing for 30 minutes. Rapper Jay Holiday made $20,000 for a half-hour set. When you factor in staff, equipment, and other expenses, the total cost is at least $85,000, which is lower than WGN Investigates initially reported, but still raising questions.
Exorbitant amount of money was spent unnecessarily.
Trustees voting not to approve thousands of dollars in expenditures for Taste of Thornton and other Henyard events, money that's already been spent.
A lot of that spending was done on credit cards. We just don't agree with so much being put on credit cards. And then also recently it looks like even stuff that we voted not to pay then was put on the credit card.
So then Henyard just said, you know what, we are not going to comply with any Freedom of Information request. Why are we telling these people how we're spending their money? You are ridiculous. It got to the point where news channels sued the Henyard administration to force them to comply with the law. essentially give over the information due to them by law under the Freedom of Information Act.
WGN is suing the village of Dalton for refusing to follow open records laws and release spending records. Last year, WGN Investigates sent Dalton an open records request seeking copies of the agency's credit card statements, as well as records relating to Mayor Henyard's compensation in the cost of her taxpayer-funded vehicle. But Dalton has declined to release the documents. After WGN Investigates appealed, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul's office ordered Dalton to release the records by mid-March. But that deadline came and went.
Now, let's fast forward. Henyard's been sued by not only WGN, but a whole bunch of other organizations wanting these records. But Henyard held out long enough to when she was kicked out of office, she then put up her hands and said, hey, I don't want anything to do with this. It's not my problem anymore. There's a new mayor and new supervisor. But as the plaintiffs in the lawsuit said, not so fast. Quote, the former mayor is about to find out if losing an election is enough to escape contempt of court. See, previously, Henyard was found in contempt of court for failing to turn over the records, but now since she's out of office, she thinks that she can avoid any contempt proceedings. But the judge said, no, you better show your butt up in court or you're going to go to jail.
Former Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard is expected in court today for failing to produce records in a lawsuit against her in the village. It is over documents she has not handed over as part of a Freedom of Information Act request. A judge previously said Henyard could be fined $1,000 a day if she doesn't give the documents to the plaintiff's lawyer. If Henyard doesn't show up to court today, she could be thrown in jail.
So facing jail time and the possibility of a $1,000 a day fine, Henyard showed up. Well, she appeared virtually.
Former Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard appeared in court virtually yesterday, complying with the judge's order. It stemmed from a Freedom of Information Act request from a downstate organization seeking credit card records. According to court documents, Henyard ignored the request and failed to show up for a hearing on the matter. Henyard has until next Friday to provide that paperwork. The judge also ordered her to appear in court in person next Friday.
Now, Henyard in that hearing told the judge that she was just the face of the village and she wasn't tasked with record keeping. But the judge wasn't having it. He said, well, you did have access to all this stuff. We ordered you to turn it over. You never turned it over. So you have to bring your behind back here next Friday and we're going to see what really happened here because those records must be turned over. Now, this is my opinion. Henyard doesn't want any of that stuff to be turned over. And the reason why is simple. She was involved in rampant corruption. And all of that corruption are within those financial documents. And since people are saying, we want to see them, she doesn't want to turn them over because that will only add more fuel to the fact that she was the worst mayor in America. So my question to you, do you think she's going to turn over those records? Do you think she's going to jail for failure to turn over records in a Freedom of Information Act request? I think she's dumb enough where it's possible. If you listen to my voice right now, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all great YouTube stuff. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace.